Yeah, I would need to go with the rational choice, but part of me wants to be kind of that
Yeah.
dreamer that's like, "Ah, yes, follow your heart." I mean, a little bit of me pulls towards that.
I don't identify with her at all. Like, if I feel I very much identify with Cooper in that scene. She's just following this desire. We shouldn't listen to this at all. This is ridiculous. Right? There's no part of me that is sympathetic towards her position, I would say. Maybe I'm cold-hearted. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I could defend it. I don't know if I could defend it, but I understand it a little bit. So I don't know how to articulate it exactly.
Welcome to Socrates at the Cinema, where every episode we look at one great idea through one great film by having a great conversation about the questions that define our lives. So grab the popcorn and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Socrates at the Cinema. My name is Trent Leach, and I'm joined by my friend Austin Anderson for today's episode, where we're going to be discussing the 2014 film Interstellar. This was written by Jonathan Christopher Nolan, directed by Nolan, rated PG, for it says perilous action. So I don't know what that means, but I guess there is perilous action that you should be cautioned about. But this was a very popular film at the time. Had a lot of discussion, and there's a lot online that you can find of interpretations and discussions about this, which is part of the reason it makes it a great film. And Austin, as we were planning this episode, each episode we like to look at just one idea within a film. And with any sort of great works of art, there are multiple ideas that the film sort of touches on or circles around or deals with. And I think I sent you a list of here are 7 or 8 possibilities of one idea that we could look at. And ultimately we settled on love. And so we're going to look at the question of love as it is sort of explored within the film Interstellar. And I kind of left it up to you as to which idea we would examine. And so why would we choose? Why do you think why did you choose love as our topic of discussion for Interstellar?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when this movie came out because I watched it, and it was actually I was in high school,
Mm.
and I was
Not working for
studying.
Blockbuster?
No, I was not working. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Blockbuster
Austin.
had already been closed by then.
Yeah.
Right.
For those listening,
I
Austin is wearing a Blockbuster hat.
yeah, right. Yeah, this is a podcast. Uh, but I think I was in physics class,
Oh.
taking a physics class at the time. And
Uh-huh.
so I remember flipping ahead in the textbook and reading about the theory of relativity after watching this movie because it was so interesting and all the science that went into it and all of that. And at the same time, I read a review of the movie
Mm-hmm.
that focused on the topic of love. And
Okay.
I was so confused because I thought this is a movie about science. It's
Uh-huh.
so intellectual. But
Yeah.
actually, as I've got a little bit older, I've found this is a more emotional movie than it is kind of a
Yeah.
math and science movie. It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, the science is very thin. It's kind of a fun
Yes.
popcorn movie for like that element of it. And then
Yes.
there's these emotional connections
Yeah.
that are actually the heart of the film. And so you have the relationship between Cooper and Murphy, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
another father and daughter in Professor Brand.
Brand, yep.
Um, you have a lot of interest, and then you have Brand's speech in the heart of the movie, which actually I think if you stop the movie at halfway, I think it's actually the moment where Cooper is watching the videos from his children after they've wasted 23 years on Miller's planet. And then after that, we kind of get the speech from uh, Dr. Brand on love
Yeah.
and how it's unobservable. And so that's to me
Yeah.
seemed like the heart of the film. And I
Yeah.
wanted to explore that a little bit more in this kind of rewatch and think a little bit more about how is love at the center of this.
Yeah, I would agree. You can find enough sort of, Neil deGrasse Tyson type things about the science of Interstellar at a sort of a popular level. And it's not, you're right. It is, I think it's more of a vehicle for this question about love as it opposed to its exploring the nature of time and space and relativity and time dilation and all that stuff. That does seem to be just sort of the vehicle by which these questions of love come up. And so I do think that at the core, that is what the movie is exploring, is the question and nature of love. And we should probably also point out particular kinds of love, right? Because we could look at love from the question of friendship, from the question of sort of just friends, like you and I are friends in that sense. But this one seems to explore kind of the idea, particularly of familial love, like the love of family. That seems to be, as it's set in contrast or in tension with sort of love generally, we might say, sort of the general feelings and duties we have with regard to love versus the love of one's family, which is a particular sliver of the whole broad question of love. And so I think that's an interesting part that not a lot of, I mean, a lot of films explore relationship love, right, between the sexes, and the romantic love maybe is another way to put it, but that's not, I mean, that does come up in this film, right? It certainly does, but I don't know if it's at the core of it necessarily as it is about the nature of love, but it's certainly not sort of love of friendship or anything like that. I don't think there's any real friendships in the film, maybe. But that did
Yeah.
strike me that that really does look at familial love, even though the
Mhm.
one of the first things we'll talk about certainly is a romantic question. But the main character Cooper doesn't really have, I mean, any romantic love within the film, right? His wife has died, right?
Sure.
I don't.
Mhm.
Do you remind me? I'm not sure how long she's been gone, but it seems like Murph doesn't really know
Yeah.
her or didn't know her at all, really.
Mhm.
Kind of get that sense. And otherwise, he doesn't have any sort of romantic relationships. So, um, yeah. So anyway, I thought that was
Right.
interesting. Yeah, and so just
Yeah,
as go ahead.
yeah, and maybe even too, I would say, self-love as well, the love of
Yes,
self, especially
yes,
in an questioning, love of self in an evolutionary sense,
yeah,
and this sort of
certainly.
survival
Right.
sense of,
Right. And that's definitely comes to the front right away. So so let's get to that then. Because that is kind of the first tension that we wanted to cover. So just as a reminder for us for context, the film takes place, I think I looked it up, in like 2046, I think is where the movie starts.
mm,
And then there's lots of time issues as it goes through, right? Or maybe it was further than 2046. I forget now. It's set in the future at some point
mhm,
in which there has been blight on the crops, um, the food sources are dying, and humanity is trying to sort of figure out a way, or NASA is, we should say. There's no other countries, it seemed like, involved other than the Indian spaceship at the beginning, or the Indian drone at the beginning that he tracks down and overrides. Um, and sort of NASA's trying to figure out a way to sort of save humanity. And in the process of trying to figure it out, they discover there is a black hole, or no, a wormhole that is opened
mm.
around Saturn, and they're able to send some probes in there and discover that there are some possible. It's a wormhole to some possible planets, which is another nice little um, basic sci-fi premise of wormhole travel.
Say it's the same thing they do in A Wrinkle in Time by,
Oh, it goes
Madeline
back even
L'Engle.
further.
I
Oh,
think
really?
I think it might actually come from that, and that's
Oh,
one of the
okay.
influences on Interstellar, so
Oh, is it?
it might.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the I wanna say it's one of the books on the bookshelf in the movie too.
Oh, it might be. Yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah. So, I mean, I have to sort of admit, I have not read A Wrinkle in Time. It's one of those that's sort of,
yeah,
I have it on my shelf. It's like, it's one of those books everyone's supposed to have read. And I haven't got to it yet. You know, it's one of
yeah,
those that's on the
yeah,
list. But I've not read it. I kind of know some of the
sure,
basics, but yeah. So I wouldn't have made that connection. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So to save humanity, they've got sort of two plans, right? They're going to find, they send off these, and I guess this is an important plot point to remind ourselves. They send off 12 astronauts, one to each of these possible 12 habitable planets through the wormhole, with the assumption that they're probably not coming back, right? That unless that planet they land on and discover that it is in fact suitable for human life, then there's just not enough, energy or whatever for them to actually travel back. So they're sending back data, and the assumption is that whoever sort of sends back that they've got a good planet, well, then that's the planet we'll go to, and all the other astronauts they realize they're going to die, right? And in the meantime, the problem back on Earth is that there's not enough energy, more or less, to transport all of humanity to this to these to
Mm,
the habitable planet if they find it.
mhm,
And so they have to, in the meantime, they also send with the ship some dried embryo or some frozen embryos that they are going to sort of thaw on this habitable planet to let them sort of repopulate and save humanity while everybody else, back on Earth dies. Or if they can figure out the gravitational equations that would let them launch massive spaceships into orbit and then transport all of humanity off of Earth and to go on. And so that's kind of the central tension of the film. And I guess now remind me, this is one of those parts where I got lost with it. The reason the purpose of the mission that we're following is just to confirm that those planets are habitable. Was that the idea? Or is it
mm,
that they're doing plan B
mm.
and is that right? Did I get that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way, I mean, they're lied to ultimately, but that plan
Right. Right.
A
Right.
idea is, yeah, they have 3 possible planets, and
Right.
they need to figure
Right.
out which one, so that they could
Yes.
potentially do this, but they have to figure out the gravity equations first,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah.
That's the idea.
Mhm.
Right. And so they're
But
going off to
ultimately,
do
there
that.
was no plan A, so I guess the idea all along was to
Yeah.
that they would stay wherever they are.
Yes, yeah, and that's going to be an important part that we look at. So, they make it to Cooper, right, who is a farmer back on planet Earth, but really a NASA engineer or a NASA astronaut. And so they go to. We're going to get to our big question here, right? So
Sure.
they make the Cooper makes the decision that he's going to leave behind his family, who is struggling on the farm. He's got a kid who's like a junior, sophomore, junior in high school. He's going to have to run the farm with grandpa, and leaves behind his younger daughter, who's really upset about it. But he sort of makes decides that no, right, in order to, help save humanity, I have to leave you behind with the assumption that he'll be back. But also with the understanding or with the assumption that when he comes back, time will have passed differently for the two of them. Right. This is this question of, we don't need to go into this, of time dilation, right, and
Sure.
relativity, that he will experience slower time. And so when he returns, she'll be as old as he is, and he'll only be, a year or two older. And so she basically now is realized she has to grow up without him. Right. And so she's pretty upset by that. And there is a part of the plot line for Murph, the daughter, is that there is this growing resentment that she has throughout her life, that she's resentful that he left her. Right. And she
Mhm.
doesn't quite understand why he had to do that. So they go off, they discover the one planet is just water and gravity. Gravity's too strong. It's not going to be any good. One of the astronauts dies. Um, and then they have to decide which of the other two possible planets to go to. And the dilemma is that the one planet, where Dr. Mann is he is sending strong data, or reports that this planet is perfect for life, right? It's just like everything he's sending out is, this is, the planet I'm on is really going to be great. It's going to be really good. And Dr. Brand, the other astronaut, says actually wants to go to a different planet, um, which is it's Edmund's planet. And basically that's discovered the reason that and I don't know if they haven't really got the same kind of strong data from Edmund, if that was
Well,
right.
yeah, Edmund's
It's
data was strong, but
right.
It
Right.
stopped at some point.
Right. And so the objectively, we might say, Dr. Mann seems like his planet seems like it's a better fit, or there's more reasons to go because there's more data. But Brand wants to go to Edmonds, and it's not like it's a huge secret. It's just, as they're discussing it, it's let out right there that the reason that she wants to go there is because she has a relationship with him, right, and she loves him. And so the question of her love for Edmund is what's shaping her recommendation to go to his planet as opposed to Dr. Mann's. And so the question maybe is that really a good way to sort of make decisions? Like, does she have a duty to someone
Mm,
that she loves? And so they need to go to Edmonds as opposed to Dr. Mann's, or how did you see? Maybe the question is,
mm,
what is the question
yeah.
here? Like, what is the central tension with with Amelia, with our Brand's recommendation, and then the argument that she and Cooper have about the process of deciding where to go. I
Mhm.
talked a lot there. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, is she being selfish?
Hmm.
Is she, um is she using love? Well, I mean, do you have what she
I
says?
have
Why
the
don't we
quote.
read what she says?
Yeah, I do have her quote. She says, Cooper says, "You're a scientist." And she says, "Listen to me when I say that love isn't something that we invented. It's observable and powerful." And I'm obviously not doing justice to her way she reads this, but she says, it has to mean something. Cooper says, "Love has meaning, yes, social utility, social bonding, child rearing." Right. So there you get the
Mm,
sense that love, that Cooper's perspective, at least at this point in the film, is that love is merely sort of an evolutionary process that is made to perpetuate the species. We love our children as a product of evolution because that's how the species, a species that doesn't love and protect its children is going to die away, right?
yeah,
And that it has this kind of social utility that, species that exhibit some kind of love in the sense of, doing things for other people has a survival advantage, right? So
yeah,
Cooper sees love, at least at this point, as kind of a naturalistic explanation, we might say. And Brand says, "We love people who have died, so where's the social utility in that?" And Cooper says they're none. And then here's the big speech that Brand gives. She says, "Maybe it means something more, something we can't yet understand. Maybe it's some evidence, some artifact of a higher dimension that we can't consciously perceive. I'm drawn across the universe to someone I haven't seen in a decade," which is Edmund, "who I know is probably dead. Love is the one thing that we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space. Maybe we should trust that, even if we can't understand it." Right? She says, "All right, Cooper, yes, the tiniest possibility of seeing Wolf or Edmund again excites me. That doesn't mean I'm wrong." And Cooper says, "Actually, it might," is what he says. So that's the big speech.
yeah. Right, because she might be because she has a bias, and
Yes.
that it's clouding her reasoning.
Yes.
Um, she needs to make the reasonable decision, and she's saying, well, maybe
Yes.
love transcends that. Maybe there's
Right.
something, um, maybe not irrational about it, but actually
Right.
supra rational, like
Yes.
above reasoning, right?
Yes.
Transcendent in that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because this does seem to be a big push today, right? This idea that we follow our loves, right? There's the quote from Pascal that's often taken out of context, that, right, the heart has its reasons that reason, doesn't understand, or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Which I think really misses, which means then is just sort of an excuse to sort of follow desires as opposed to what your head and reason tells you, which I don't think is what Pascal is advocating for, but people use it in that way, right? To follow your heart, right? Follow this idea
Yeah.
of love, and that we shouldn't follow sort of pure cold rationality. And so that's a big, that's a big push today. And so maybe Brand sort of, but it's not quite that, is it? Right? Because for her, there's the idea is that maybe there's something beyond just the feeling, and that the feeling points to some higher truth. Seems to be her argument.
Mm.
If we assume that she's not just justifying her the erotic desire to see, or the romantic desire to see Wolf again, right? Maybe that is one of the big questions. Does she really believe this? And if she does, then what does it mean? Or is this just a rational, not rationalization, but, well, maybe it is a rationalization for why you should follow your heart as opposed to your head. I don't know.
Hmm.
Do you think what do you think is of those? I mean, did I
Yeah.
complicate that question enough? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, uh, I would emphasize that she's kind of making the point that love is, pre-exists humanity, right? That it pre-existed. It's not something, so it's not the result of, some evolutionary process to develop our,
Right.
survive to help us in survival, right? And so it's not procreative, kind of a procreative urge or something that she's talking about.
And this is the difficulty with the question of love, because love is one of those words that it has all of those different meanings at once, right? If,
Mhm.
in philosophy, we want to make sure we define our terms, this is a word that it has such a range of meanings that the possibility that you're going to equivocate at some point in a discussion about love is very high.
Yeah, I mean, does she just means it as a desire, though, in this case,
Yeah.
right? That there's this
Yeah.
pull towards someone else that she
Right.
hasn't seen in a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, yeah. I don't know if I don't, because she says it's something that we can't consciously perceive, but yet we're capable of perceiving it. So I don't know exactly what she would mean by that. At least at this point in the film, right? I think you and I will both agree that the film does circle back to this question, and kind of it seems like the whole argument of the film comes back to this question, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
because it is what kind of sets everything off, is that there is this higher sort of evolutionary thing that happens to humans, right? As
Mhm.
they become interdimensional later on towards the end of the film, we discover, right? Or at least that's what Cooper asserts, and that's not never really proven, that it's humans all along that created the Tesseract and all
Yeah.
of that. But he does assert that, so I mean, maybe he's
Mhm.
right. I don't know. Um, so I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, me personally, it does seem like I would, even though I don't believe that love is just sort of this evolutionary utilitarian thing that Cooper does. At the same time, I do agree with his conclusion about which planet they should go to. Right? You should follow. I would at least say that you should follow where where your head is taking you, right? Where
Mhm.
reason, and your rationality as you look at it, right? Even though reason is imperfect and all of those things, it's like what every reason we have says to go to this planet, then that's where we should go. Right. That's, I
Mhm.
don't know. Who would you agree with in this debate or this discussion, do you think, at the time? If you were Cooper, would
Yeah.
you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's tough because I think for me it would be, yeah, I would need to go with the rational choice, but part of me wants to be kind of that
Mm.
dreamer that's like, "Ah, yes, the love, I wanna follow your heart." I mean, a little bit of me pulls towards that. Um,
There's almost no part of me that, and maybe, I don't know. I
yeah,
just, I don't identify with her at all. Like, if I feel I
yeah,
very much identify with Cooper in that scene. It's like, yeah, she's just following this desire. We shouldn't listen to this at all. This is ridiculous. Right? There's no
yeah,
part of me that is sympathetic towards her position, I would say.
mhm.
But I don't know. I mean, it's just, maybe I'm cold hearted. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't I think it well, yeah, I don't know if I could defend it. I don't know if I could defend it, but
Yeah.
I understand it a little bit, so I don't know
Okay.
how to articulate it exactly. It's something, it's I think Cooper and the other scientist they quickly dismiss her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that there's something very rational about that, but it seems, um, but I think there's a human element that Brand is bringing there that I think the other two are overlooking. And I think that there's like a, maybe it's Cartesian or maybe something like this of being purely rational and thinking things that's too much that it's ignoring this, maybe another like another part of us that's capable of perceiving something, like love that isn't rational. I mean, would love be is love a rational thing? Is it how would it be connected with knowledge in that way?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, is it something is it I mean, it's is it something we observe and measure like the scientist that Cooper wants us to be? Is it something that we can hypothesize about and
Mm-hmm.
experiment with, or are there things like love that we're capable of perceiving and should consider in making a decision and not
Mm-hmm.
simply, um, but maybe subservient to our reason? I don't. I mean, not saying we should follow our hearts and ignore what is rational, because I think the two should ultimately agree. And I mean, that
Yes.
might be interesting to say, like, that um that if we want to do something irrational for love, I think that that shouldn't happen, right? That
Yep.
shouldn't,
Yep.
then it's something's wrong with our loves
Yeah.
there. Whereas the two should be in alignment. So if something we should love, but it doesn't make sense to us,
Hmm.
then the error would be in our reason. So I think those two should be reconcilable, but they're
Yeah,
not
I think
always.
so.
And
Yeah.
in this case, it seems like they need to make the rational choice. But also, I don't think Edmund's data is that bad. I mean, it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like it's actually a bad decision.
Hmm.
And
It's not
ultimately,
irrational.
and I mean, there might be a rational component to it as well. Just to say, the fact that she loves Edmund um, makes his data more trustworthy. The fact that she
Hmm.
trusts him, ultimately, that might be. But then that love just becomes another data point in
Yeah.
the rational conclusion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because the point is made that Dr. Mann is like the greatest expert on these questions, right? That
sure,
and so that so
he's the
that's
best of
decide from
us.
Cooper
Yeah,
that he would be more trustworthy, right? Because
yeah.
he is the best scientist there. But yeah, I
Hmm.
think certainly love is part of the sort of as an appetite of desire is does lead you to. I mean, there is a relationship between knowledge and love, definitely, in that love is what moves the will to know, right? Is what I would, following Thomas Aquinas, that's what I would say, right? That it is a desire, there's a desire to know, and it's a kind of love, right? To know the cause or the essence of a thing. But that's what love, but love is not the end in that regard. You don't love for the sake of loving, you love that drives you to know, right? And then the more you know of someone, it increases your love, which just means it increases your desire to know them more intimately, right? In that
Mm.
regard. And similarly, I think with regard to love of just of knowledge itself in the scientific sense of knowledge, that it drives that our desire for knowledge is a kind of love that desires
Mm.
us to know the essence or cause of a thing. So I do think there's a relationship
So
there.
Cooper brings that up a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
he has the
The
quote where he
desire
says,
for, yeah, exploration and yeah.
"Sure, right, that is, yeah, we used to look
Right.
up at the stars and wonder,
Right.
right, at our place in the cosmos or the
Yeah.
universe." And he, so you have that love there,
Yes.
which actually might be what drives him to leave.
Yeah, I
Ultimately,
do wonder about that. Like it's because
he
the film, yeah, the film does definitely drives hard the point that he does not like what he's doing and that he is not content to be a farmer and that he has a desire for something more. Like that's
he's
really
not
pushed.
yeah, he's not actually doing it to save the world. I think his
Uh,
father-in-law accuses him of that in one scene where he says, "You can do the right thing for the wrong reasons." So Cooper's looking to do he's doing the right thing, he should do, but he's doing it for the wrong reasons.
yeah, yeah, and so that is a good question, which is another question that we had with whether or not Cooper's decision to sort of leave the children and sort of save humanity is that um what does drive that question or that his desire to do it? Is it just dressed? Is it because I think you've kind of answered it there, that it's not this great sacrificial love that he's willing to sort of sacrifice his relationship with his children in order to save humanity, as much as he's motivated by this restlessness of just sitting and kind of doing nothing. Because I think at that point he's aware, again, I'm trying to think of the order of the plot, but at that point he's aware that the corn's going to give out, and eventually if they don't get off the planet, everyone's going to actually suffocate, after there's going to be rounds of starvation, but then eventually the oxygen is going to be gone from the atmosphere and everyone's going to suffocate, right? And he just can't
Mhm.
sort of sit and not be a part of going out and trying to save it. So yeah, I don't think he's driven. I think you're right. I don't think he's driven by some sort of sense of love of humanity, and that somehow overrides his duty to his children. Because he definitely loves it. Like he has this. He loves his kids. I don't think that is in question, because that is definitely on his mind throughout the entire journey. But there is, and even I think you see this kind of at the end as well. when he can't stay even with his daughter after they reunite, right? Which I thought was an odd, I don't know if we're gonna get into this now, but I thought was odd that all of his grandkids and grandkids would have been there, and he had no desire to even talk to them. He says his goodbyes to Murph, and then he's on the spaceship to go find Amelia, right? And just like, really? You didn't have any desire to meet any of your family? It just, that seemed odd to me. I don't know. I don't know. What does that say
Yeah.
about Cooper's motivations then? Maybe that makes you're right about his motivations then, and that's another bit of evidence. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, gets right back on the spaceship, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I think that if we go back to Amelia in that question, I do think that um because I mean part of the irony of the film is that in the end she's actually right, right? That they
Mhm.
discover, right? And so what did you make of that then? That does that change anything to that Edmund's planet is actually better, and that Dr. Mann, which had been faking all of his data because he didn't want to die, like he actually got down to the planet.
There's a lot of competing views of love there. I mean, you have the self-love, of Dr. Mann, Matt Damon's character, and that he doesn't wanna die. He won't sacrifice himself for the good of humanity, but then ultimately, Cooper sacrifices himself for the good of humanity, just a few minutes later. And so you have that. I mean that idea, but she gets to Edmund's planet, and it seems like it is habitable. She takes off her helmet and she can breathe the air, but Edmonds has died, but it looks like he's set up camp and he's gotten some things going. So she was right. Um, yeah, so there's that. That idea that, okay, love apparently
Right.
communicated something across space and time to her that she needed to make that decision. Um, But then there's the scene in the Tesseract. I don't know. Do you want to get into the Tesseract? This idea where Cooper goes into the black
Yep.
hole.
So they finally do get off of Man's planet, and they're trying to get back, and this is a whole other issue that that Cooper is willing. Yeah, he says Cooper's not willing to sacrifice himself because they have to sort of skim around the black hole in order to have enough momentum to get Amelia to the planet, right? And he's going to sort of for something to push off against. He's jettisoning himself and going into the black hole in order to gather data. Because again, just as a reminder, they've been trying to figure out this question of gravity in order to get everybody off the planet, and he thinks going into the black hole would be a way to get the data about gravity. Like if he can get into the
Right.
black hole, cross the event horizon, and then he can gather the data, and that
Well,
will be then
ultimately, I mean
communicated back, right? That's the right.
that's why he sends TARS.
Right.
TARS is going to do that.
Right.
Um, I think he is dropping off so that because of Newton's third law, which
Right.
is you got to let something go
Right.
in order to move forward, and
Right.
that's partially a theme of this whole idea that part of loving is letting go,
Mm.
right? So if they have to let things go, and he has to let Murph go in order to do what he needs to do. That's a theme that's happening, especially the idea of letting go. um the enemy there is time. They're constantly against time, and so he has to let go of time, with his children, with people, in order to do things. So that's why he goes and he lets go so she can get to where she needs to be. And so,
Hmm.
but then ultimately, when they get into the black hole, he is
Right.
spared by
Right.
these fifth dimensional beings,
Right.
um, and he's stored in some sort of tesseract.
Right. Yeah, so he exists in there, and in the middle of the Tesseract, it represents it represents one space, which is his daughter's bedroom, but it
Mhm.
exists at every time, right? And so he can't go there, but he can see and he can influence behind the bookshelf, right?
But when he's in this tesseract, this like three-dimensional or four-dimensional representation of his daughter's bedroom
Yeah,
over all of time, he says something like, about how Amelia was right, um, that it is love that
yeah,
connects him it's his love for his daughter that connects him to her across time and space so that he's able uh to do this, get this data to her. So yeah, I mean, it kind of connects to just to the line he says at the beginning about how parents are the ghosts of their children's future. And so um just how love operates apart from time and space, how you can love someone you haven't seen in a long time, that theme is there, present there too. um but it was interesting to me just that, why is it his daughter's room? Why is that the thing? And I think the answer to that is because of his love for her. That's
Right.
what connects. He has so much love for her. That's why he's able to see that space specifically. Because, why couldn't it be her office at NASA and he could just punch the data into the computer for her and all
I
these
mean,
things?
I
So
mean that, and or why isn't it his son? Like, why is the
right.
right?
Yeah.
That's the. I mean, I think that's another interesting question. Why is it
Yeah.
Murph and not, what's the boy's name? I forget.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's so much of this, like, this love across time and space, especially too with the videos that he watches of his kids, how they
right,
are connected no matter how far apart they are, there's
right.
still this connection. And so it's just
Hmm.
really emphasizing that point that love transcends time and space for her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, except that Murph doesn't send videos, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an interesting question about whether Murph's, sort of resentment was in any way sort of justified. Would you say
Mm,
that, you know,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, it certainly doesn't. I
Well,
mean, certainly as a child, I can understand that. But it seems like as you get
sure.
older, surely there's got to be, okay, I understood he did this because he thought, he was saving humanity
Sure.
and all that. But she doesn't let it go. Like, she's very
Yeah.
resentful.
Well,
Right.
yeah, but I think she
I
just
mean, up
has
until the very
trouble.
end.
Yeah, I think she just has some emotional issues because, I mean, the fact that she goes to NASA and works for, 30 years to save her dad, I think it's very clear her actions speak a little louder than, I mean, she's kind of, I don't know, she's duplicitous in that, at least it seems like.
I mean, she was on that trajectory already, right? That
Sure.
they definitely set it up that she was heading in that direction,
Yeah. Yeah.
with the school and um, yeah, yeah, and that's a whole other issue the other angle, the relationship of humanity sort of to technology, and this idea that the official narrative now is that we never landed on the moon and there is no more space program, and right, all of
Oh,
these
yeah.
things, right? In order to, because if people believe that, then they would sort of think about the stars, and our benevolent overlords, right, have decided that it's better for people to focus on the issues on the earth.
Mm,
But I don't know, what did you make of maybe we're going to talk about that, Professor Brand, and the lie that Plan A
yeah.
wasn't really ever a plan, and it was just an excuse to get the embryos off into space, and Plan B was the plan all along. Um, what do you think?
Yeah. I did notice, it's interesting that we have 2 relationships there. We have Cooper and Murph, father and daughter, and then
Yep.
we have the 2 brands are father and daughter, and I
Yep.
thought that was interesting contrasting those 2 because you have that moment where he's dying and he reveals there's no plan A. And then, Murph goes to the monitor and lets them know,
Right.
so that they find out, and Amelia Brand is surprised. She was lied to as well. And so but at the same time, you have Cooper who lies to Murph at the beginning by saying he's going to come back. I mean, he's
Right.
not lying, but he's kind of lying, right? He doesn't know what
Yeah.
he's giving her
That's
a little
the
bit of
yeah, that's the
making a
90%
promise he can't
honesty.
keep.
The 90% honesty maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The 90% honesty,
Yeah.
yeah, but that lie to protect people, um
Yeah.
that it's like a lie out of love,
Yeah.
apparently, that he's doing out of love to save people's lives.
Yes. But
Um,
it is sort of a love out of this sort of this abstract concept of humanity. I mean, it is an interesting question about whether, because the tension here then is with regard to the relationship between love and duty, right? Like, if I love someone, then I have certain moral obligations to them, right? And so that's why, it's what bonds the parent and the child, right? That there are certain obligations, duties that both of them have to one another, and that love is part of what drives that. But can you, I mean, this is an interesting question. Can you have love for humanity in the abstract in that sense?
Mm,
Because that's a big thing that pushes Professor Brand to make this lie, is that he's acting for the best interest of the species. But I don't know about that. Do we have obligations to the abstract concept of our humanity as a species? I don't
mhm,
know. What do you think of that? I don't know. To what degree do you have duties towards people you don't know?
mm,
Right? Because there is also the concept that you can't love what is not known. Right?
mm,
That love requires a kind of knowledge, right? So I can't, so someone that lives, on the other side of the planet, who I've, never, I don't even know their name. I can't love that person because I don't know them, right? But the more I know someone, the more I can love them, because love requires me to always act in that person's best interest. And it requires an intimate knowledge of who they are to know what is actually to their advantage, what is in their best interest. And so I can't love someone that I don't know. So I do wonder if there's a sense in which you can love humanity in the abstract at all. Right?
mm,
I don't know. Um this certainly isn't one of those questions. So, I mean, part of the issue here is that this is not a question that most of us are ever going to face, right? Like, none of us are going to be brought up with, or are we willing to save the species with our one decision, right? Um, but for in the issue of the film is, I think, whether or not you're a parent or a government or a a school, even, right? If can you justify sort of withholding truths for some greater good? Like, is that
mm.
kind of justified for the sake of love? Does that ultimately vindicate the moral obligation that you have to tell the truth? I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't
I don't know if the film really addresses that. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know about the lying, but I think
Yeah.
the idea of love and duty is a really interesting one here,
Mhm.
and it just reminds me of, like, having to go to work, and I remember I was reading an interview from Christopher Nolan talking about this film, and how when he was writing it, he thought, sometimes I have to leave my kids to go shoot a film, and I'm gone for all this time, and he's choosing, duty over a love for his kids, and
Yeah.
so we're all put in situations where we have to make choices like that, where we have to the choice that Cooper has to make ultimately, I think.
Okay.
But there's a
With
few of
regard to
those
sort of in
choices.
a much in a sort of a microcosm, right? In a more of a
Yeah.
limited sense, right?
Yeah, like, every day when I go to work, I gotta say bye to my kids because I'm saying this thing I have to do is more important than you know, hanging out with you today and I have to set aside this one duty towards you. I love you, but I have a duty to do this thing. And maybe my duty to do this thing is fulfilling
Right.
my
Yeah, that's what
duty
I
to
would
love
say.
you as
Yeah.
well too.
Because if you don't do that, then you can't provide for them, you can't, right? You're not,
Sure.
you're failing that in that sense as a father, yeah.
Sure. But sometimes I do more or I might make more money than I need to provide for their needs, or I maybe work and provide for something I want. And so I'm
Mm.
now sacrificing. So there's trade-offs there that I think everyone has to make. Um, yeah, it is interesting. I think it's a classical idea. You have Aeneas who chooses duty over love. I think that's the most famous example where he's in love with Dido, but he has a duty to go to start the civilization that would become Rome, and so he chooses right. That to me is like actually very similar to this. That's a romantic love, but it's someone who thinks I need to go start this. I need to save civilization here, and so there's that idea.
Yeah. Well, I'd also be
Um,
reminded that Augustine, right? He says that he wept for Dido when they were broken up, but that his weeping was a sign of his own disordered love, because they shouldn't have been together in the first place, right? Is what Augustine argues. Is it was my disordered
yeah,
loves that made me weep for Dido.
yeah, yeah. But um, yeah, it's just that idea of choosing. We have duties and we have loves, and they seem to compete sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's competing loves at least too, and so
Yes.
trying to order those in a
Yeah. And
way
I
like
think
so Cooper maybe is choosing. I don't know what his motives are exactly, but he's at least we could say maybe he's he loves his daughter, but he also, I mean, we could say maybe he just loves, interstellar travel, and that's why he wants to do it. But he also, I think he loves maybe humanity in general, and he thinks he needs, or maybe it's his love for his kids. He wants to save his kids ultimately. So maybe that's what it is. It is a love of kids.
Yeah, and I don't know, because it does seem like that the argument is that the, at least of the film, right, is that it's humans actually who've made the black hole and have made the Tesseract. At least that's Cooper's. I mentioned this before. That's Cooper's assertion that it's not some other species, but it's sort of humans that have evolved, right, and have then that it's out of maybe their, it's, and so, but then there's also the question of, well, right, then you get all sort of time travel stuff and
Yeah.
and all of that, which we don't want to get into. But that
Right.
ultimately it was, yeah. So in the end, right, I think you mentioned before that in the Tesseract, Cooper mentions that Amelia was right, like that love is, it is what led him out. It is what, right, this. So I think Cooper, at least in the end, sees it that it is love. It was his love sort of for his, to save the children maybe that went out, and that it's the love of this higher dimension, that's that in this higher dimensional sense, that's going to save humanity ultimately, because it's the connection between he and Murph that ultimately gets her to look at the watch and keeps her in that room, right, in order to get the data through the Morse code, right, which they ultimately use. Which it was always nice. It was a nice touch as well that it wasn't binary that they were communicating with, right? It was the Morse code that she had wanted in the first place, which
Hmm.
also presumes they know Morse code, which I don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, in the
Yeah.
end, I think this is a lot of interesting questions about that are brought up, and I do think the argument of the film is this idea that love is something, is a driving force to some degree, that does, again, I think, like what you said, it's not irrational, right, but it's certainly in some degree, in some ways, maybe transcends rationality, but it's, yeah, but it's certainly, it can't be irrational, right, it can't contradict reason, right, because those two things, because then you have a contradiction within reality, which I think is kind of an impossibility, right, and so, and I think that's on the other side, I think that's also what the people who do say sort of follow your heart and follow your loves really are, for the most part, justifying doing something the reason tells them they shouldn't be doing, right, and I think in those regards, yeah, I think you should follow your reason, right,
Yeah. I think that's a good explanation of what I was trying to say earlier.
okay.
I think that you said it better than I said it, I think. But I would say too, I wonder if this is a very sciency seeming movie, but it's not meant to be. I think one of the issues with Christopher Nolan's films is, and especially this one, is that um there's an urge in us to treat it like a puzzle that needs to be solved and unraveled, and that sort of thing, and that we need to figure out all these things. But actually, I think the way this film, it's supposed to be an emotional experience, and it's supposed to be almost received rather than analyzed. So
Mm,
I feel like when we analyze it, it starts to break down a little bit because it's more of an emotional experience. I mean, to take this movie away from its score or something like that is just, is hard because I mean, there's so much going on there. I mean, there's a scene where we're looking at Saturn. I think the Endurance ship is flying in front of Saturn, and
yeah,
we hear cricket noises and trees, and it's like, and there's, and then we have this organ score throughout the whole thing, and there's these amazing, I mean, just incredible acting, and so it's very much to me a movie that needs to be experienced almost on an emotional level, and I think that I almost understand what she's trying to say on an emotional level better than I
mm.
do on a rational level. Because when I start to analyze what she's saying, it does break down a little bit, and
By
I'm
and
like,
by sh- by
well,
sh- you
it
mean
doesn't.
Amelia?
Sure,
Yeah,
Amelia
yeah,
and some of the other parts, like there's plot holes and there's
yeah,
things that don't make sense, and you almost have to, you have to suspend
yeah,
disbelief, and you have to
right,
almost just receive this movie, and it
yeah,
kind of, I think it is an experience on an emotional level for the viewer rather than something to be picked apart
yeah,
and overanalyzed. So I think that's just an interesting element to this film, is that it's not a
uh-huh,
puzzle in that way.
yeah, yeah. Certainly not in the way like maybe Memento is, which I think is a little bit more puzzle box kind of film, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's interesting you brought this point up that for all of our talk right now with what drives Cooper is this love for adventure and the travel and all of that. What he's listening to when he travels are sounds from home. Right. I
Mhm.
thought that was interesting, right? Because he's the one that's where we get those cricket sounds, right? He gives the
Right.
headphones to the other astronaut,
Yeah.
and what he's
Yep.
been listening to are crickets from the farm. Like, so he
Mhm.
does love, right? There is a love there. So he's got, I think there's this
Mhm.
tension within him, right? Of what he was maybe feels like he was called to do or to be in some way, and his love. But maybe those things aren't in tension either, right? It's because he loves, the people and the earth so much that he wants to save those that are there.
Mm.
So maybe it's not a contradiction. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Very good. Well, thank you for another great conversation, Austin.
Yeah, it's great.
So here's where we landed. At the start of the film, Brand argues that love isn't irrational. It might actually be perceiving something that reason can't. Cooper dismisses her. But by the end, she's right. And it's his love for Murph that actually saves humanity. So does the film actually prove Brand's point? And if love really does have that kind of power, what does that mean for the times in your life when you've had to choose between what you feel and what makes sense? Tell us what you think in the comments, and thanks for joining us. If you want to keep looking for the wisdom of the ages in the films of today, make sure to follow or subscribe to Socrates at the Cinema wherever you're listening. Pull up a seat with us to explore great ideas through great films by having great conversations.